All right, we're live. Let me do my thing. Hey, folks, and welcome to this episode of the Officer Dad podcast. With me again is the mysterious and the often legend about JC. We changed his name since last time to protect his mysterious identity. He is the ever watchful eye. So what's up?
Absolutely
How
nothing.
you doing?
I'm great. How you doing?
I am living the dream, man. That's my tagline.
Oh, is that right? So I got
That is right.
a good video today.
Yeah. Tell us about that video that you saw today.
All right. The video that I actually saw is actually an old video, but I guess it's coming back around in circulation again. It is called the video on YouTube is "Infant Baby Swimming Alone, a Must See," and it is actually a product sold by ISR, a company called ISR, and it's called Self Rescue Survival, and it's swimming lessons for children. You know, they have different packages from 6 to 12 months, 1 to 6 years old, and basically what it is uh, a life-saving swimming teaching method to teach children how to swim when they find themselves in peculiar situations, like
Easy for you to say.
falling in a swimming pool or falling in a lake or something like that. Basically, the video that I saw that's on YouTube shows a dad. I don't know what he's doing. He walks out of a house and he is carrying stuff, and he walks out of the back door by a pool, through another door and out. And then you see a little dog come scooting open the door that he left partially open. And then shortly after that, there's a small infant that walks out in his pajamas. That infant walks over to the pool, has a toy in his hand, drops his toy in the pool, and then the next thing you see is the baby falling into the pool. It's apparent that baby has had these life-saving techniques, or the survival swimming skills, taught to him already. And basically what happens is the baby swims for a second till he gets back to the top of the water, rolls back on his back, and sits there for a second until he can safely swim again. He'll swim again for a little bit, and he'll float on his back again. And while he's floating his back, he's crying, or he's calling out for help, or he's calling his dad, or in the video he's calling out for his dad. And then it shows them eventually having that child swim all the way to the side of the pool where he can hold on himself until somebody can help him get out.
Right.
And I just thought that was pretty interesting, because they say babies or infants can swim if you throw them in the water as soon as they're born. But what parent's going to try that?
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that, because this year, you about to blow up over there, man?
You got a time bomb.
So, anyway, what I was saying was this year, my 3-year-old decided that he wanted to play in the pool like the big boys, and he wanted to slide down the big slide going into one of our friends' pools. Now, when I say a big slide, it's probably 10 feet or so. You know, it's nothing huge, and it's manageable for someone maybe 10 or 11 or something like that. It's a pretty big slide. But he decided that he wanted to do it, and so we let him climb all the way up to the top of the slide, and he slid down, and I caught him and got him up to the side of the pool, and he was all giggly and wanted to do it again. But the strange thing about that is that last year, actually, he was at my wife's father's pool, and he fell in. And when I say fell in, I mean he reached for something and fell into the pool. Thankfully, we were there, and I was actually in the pool, saw him fall in, and I dove down and got him in. When I say dove, I mean we were in the shallow end, so it was 3 feet or whatever the shallow end of the pool is. It's not the 12 or 15 feet that the deep end is, but I reached down, got him, pulled him up, and set him back up on the side of the pool, and he was just sitting there giggling, laughing like he intended to do it, and that really speaks
Right.
volumes about the ability for children to not realize the kind of danger that they're in. It's kind of like that old saying, "God protects drunks and little kids and serious injury accidents."
Absolutely. It scares me to death to have my children at a pool that I'm not at, or at a lake or something that I'm not at. Their mother can't swim. She can stand up in the pool. She can do her best in the pool, but she can't actually swim. She's never had any swimming lessons. With them at the pool with her, it doesn't worry me as much as if they were with aunt, or uncle, or somebody else,
Right.
because I know that at least she will be there to attempt to help them. But
Well, motherly instinct, I think, accounts for a lot.
absolutely, you know,
I'll tell you what's kind of strange is that I never was taught how to swim either. And where I learned to swim was actually in Marine Corps boot camp. And they didn't necessarily teach us to swim. What they taught us was water survival. So, I still couldn't tell you the difference in any of the strokes. And, I mean, I know kind of at a fundamental level what the difference is, but I was never taught to swim. I was taught to survive in the water, which is totally different, and actually probably a skill that I pass on to my kids a little more than I realize. Because my 10-year-old, he knows how to do a side stroke to get from the middle of the deep end over to the side of the pool, which is something that they teach you in Marine Corps boot camp. So. Uh, if you're not familiar with the water, I think especially now as the year kind of starts to go into mid-year and the weather gets good, you should be teaching your kids some pool safety stuff. And I watched the video, and honestly, it kind of makes me sick seeing that kid fall in the water. But you should be exposing your kids to stuff like this, because if you're not, then what happens when they do fall in the pool?
I know that the Red Cross and other organizations have swimming lessons that they'll give, for pretty low cost. If your children are in the Boy Scouts, I know that they have merit badges based on swimming, and they'll teach you how to swim through there as well. You can also go to your
That's interesting.
local aquatic centers through your counties and states. Maybe they have something as well. I actually learned how to swim at a summer camp at a college in New York, and they had different levels. You had basic, advanced, and intermediate
Where? Did you say in New York?
in New York.
Wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. I've known you for like ever.
We've talked about this before.
Are you sure?
We've
I
talked
don't
about it before.
I don't remember you ever.
We've talked about it before.
Okay. Okay. I believe you. I don't recall it right now.
Uh, there's probably good reason, but we've talked about it before. And I learned at the college that I learned at was Canisius College. They have a summer camp program every year, and I don't know if it's just for low income or underprivileged children, but I went every summer that I was in New York. Typically, I spent the summers in New York with my grandmother while my mother was out here working and doing the things she needed to do. But
Hey, you know what? Now that I think about it, I do recall that. I do recall us talking about that. And yes, yeah, different part of the state, but still upstate.
absolutely.
Gotcha.
Al-
Gotcha.
I'm almost by Toronto.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I'm a little further upstate than you, but not by much.
Right. So, I learned my basics in swimming there, and I think I got all the way to intermediate. So I was doing pretty well. I was learning how to dive in the pool and swimming under 12 feet all the way at the bottom of the pool and all that other goodness. Then, then, uh, 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 then after that, I went to the Boy Scouts, and in the Boy Scouts, I learned how to swim as well. To earn a merit badge, you have to do certain things. Um, you have to do certain things to achieve that merit badge, just like any other merit badge in the Boy Scouts. And you basically have to swim around, or I can't remember exactly what it was, but I earned my lifeguard certification through the Boy Scouts.
Oh,
But
I didn't even know the Boy Scouts even offered that.
it's like the merit badge is like swimming or safety swimming. Hell, I don't know what it's called. But as a part of that, I got a Red Cross card saying that I was a certified lifeguard. But I was 12, maybe 12. So where can I really be a lifeguard at? But
Right, right.
I learned the skills necessary to do it. But it is what it is.
That is true. Now, I'll tell you something that's actually kind of strange, and maybe you could speak to this a little more. When I was in the Marine Corps, we had an just obscene amount of people that couldn't swim. Do you think that that is something that our generation of young adults are starting to realize, is that kind of as the acidification, if you would, of people, being raised in cities and stuff like that, as opposed to out in the country? Do you think that that's kind of a lost art, that people aren't being taught how to swim?
I don't think that's something that's going on now. I think that that's something that happened before our time. Before our time, there were less access to public swimming pools for obvious reasons.
Sure,
Um,
sure.
but the majority of the high schools in city locations have swimming pools and there are swimming classes. So I know that my mother went to a high school that had a pool that had swimming classes, but I don't know if it was an elective, if it was a choice that you had to choose to swim or not. But since being down here in the South, I realized that everybody swims. So
True,
you
true.
know, coming down here, it was like nothing. Everybody swam, and most people down here that I've heard that learn how to swim always tell me the same thing. At least all the guys that I know tell me the same thing. I learned how to swim by my dad throwing me out in the deep end and telling me, "You're not going to drown. You'll make it. Swim to the side." And many of those guys have done that and are successful swimmers at this point. At least they can save their own lives swimming. But saving somebody else, I couldn't
Right.
tell you.
Well,
But
yeah, it's there's as you go through the swim qualifications in the Marine Corps, something that you are taught is how to save other people. And it's funny that you mentioned that saving other people thing. The way that we were taught to do it is a drowning person will kill you. So,
exactly.
so what we were actually taught to do is to grab the person, suck in a whole bunch of air, and just kind of drag them on down as far as they can go under the water. Let them pass out, and then you can drag them to safety and basically revive them. So we were essentially taught to get them unconscious and drag them to safety so they didn't kill both of us. Which that's kind of one of those things where uh, that sounds really cruel, but you can either lose one person or you can lose two. So the choice is up to you.
Well, that's a a part of the skill that they teach you in the lifeguard training. I don't know if it's still currently the same as it was then, but all of our training was without any kind of instruments or any kind of devices. Most
Right.
lifeguards you see now sitting on the side of the pool or sitting on the side of the beach have those little things look like damn, I don't know what they
Little red
call them things.
torpedoes.
Right, right. Or that long thing that says lifeguard on it. Just a float that says lifeguard on it.
Right, right.
The way that we were actually taught is you go up under one of their arms and around their neck with one of your arms, and you hold it and you bring it up to yourself, almost like you're choking them out, but you have an arm in there, so you don't actually choke them out. And you
Right,
do
right.
that side stroke to the side of the pool, but if they start to fight and start to resist you, you just let them go. You let them go and you let them do their own thing. If they pass out under the water, they pass out under the water. But basically, you just let them go until they are at a point of where they want to be helped again.
Yeah, isn't that kind of strange how the need for oxygen will kind of turn your attitude?
Absolutely.
I'm just
I don't
trying
know
to
if
keep.
you've ever jumped in the pool like in the 3 feet and lost your bearing when you can stand up, but for whatever reason you don't feel like you can stand up and you feel like you're about to die and you're about to drown because your feet can't touch the bottom, you don't know which way is up, and you got your eyes closed, so you have no idea what the hell is going on.
Right. Yeah,
But
I've never been that disoriented in the water. I've always been able to kind of keep my bearing and allow myself to at least float so I can see which direction is up, which is very helpful.
the difference is like you said, you don't know how to swim.
Right.
So somebody who doesn't know how to swim isn't going to be willing to take those risks. My 6-year-old will jump into 9 foot and not even think about it. He can do his best to get to the side if he doesn't have his life jacket on. But typically he won't get in the pool without it because he knows how important it is. Because I've basically ingrained that in him. If he's going to go in the water or near the water, he needs to have that life jacket on. And that's something that a
Yeah.
lot of parents these days I don't think actually take heed in. Regardless if your child can swim or not, if you're at a pool and you're hanging out with, your friends or buddies or whatever, and there's 10 or 20 kids in the pool, it's easy to miss one of them
I
and have
agree.
to
Oh God, I agree.
have a super sad day
Oh man,
because
you know, I mean, you and I both know that you dread that call when you get that child in the pool call, man, and you know that it just sinks, your heart just sinks to the bottom of your stomach, and you're like, oh my goodness, I hope that kid's breathing when I get there.
mm-hmm, absolutely.
And thankfully, children's bodies are a little more resilient than adults' bodies. So most of the time, they actually are breathing by the time you get there. Either that, or it's not really as serious as what the parents are making it out to be. And don't get me wrong, I understand that that's a very traumatic event to witness and stuff like that. But we have all dealt with the parent that's a little overreacting to something. But I mean, I don't think you can overreact too much to the fact that your kid just kind of took a dip in the pool without you knowing it.
Right, right. Have you ever seen the show Undercover Boss?
I have actually. I saw that show. I guess about 2 years ago or 3 years ago now is when I came upon it, and the first episode that I watched was from an amusement park director that went undercover at one of his chain amusement parks in the DC area.
Hmm. Well, I love that show, and me and my boys were watching it earlier today, and I think law enforcement managers can learn a lot from that show. I've been screaming it out to the people around me that I feel like that is something that should be implemented in law enforcement because with most management level uh, commanders, as we call them, in law enforcement, their last probably true law enforcement experience was no sooner than 10 years ago. So, with that 10-year lag, things have changed. Equipment has changed. The way we do our job has changed. The culture of the people who we deal with has changed.
I
So,
agree. I agree.
something as simple as making a policy of, you know, you will do X before you do Y sometimes doesn't actually pan out to be the best way to do something in the real world. And the thing that got me thinking about that today was, of course the president or COO or CEO or whatever of whoever's the highest man in the company typically,
Right.
you know, uh, for those of you who have never seen the show, typically goes in disguise and goes to different locations of their business that they have. And typically they're large chains, they're, Waste Management, Dunkin' Donuts, 7-Eleven, that's just a few of them, but they have a lot of large corporations that they deal with. And the one that I watched today was the one with Waste Management. And the guy went and did the jobs, got fired from one of the jobs, and it was pretty funny. But
Wait, so the CEO of the company got fired from a job that he has hired someone to perform in the past.
right, because he couldn't perform to the standards that the corporate office wanted.
Now, I think it's very important what you said there, that standard was set by the corporate office.
Correct. The
So
corporate
the office
office,
that he worked in, he couldn't meet the standard for a job that he had set the precedence for, correct?
absolutely. So at the end of the show, or towards the end of the show, the person who went undercover will typically call all of the people back to their main headquarters who he's had interaction with. And
Right.
he'll, promote some people, tell them they've done a good job, give some people raises, tell some people they need to work harder, or he'll even fire people from that point. Um, this one, he went through and he didn't really do too much promotion. He gave one person a promotion, but everybody else, he told them, good job, keep doing what you're doing,
Right.
and thanks for making our company what it is. But there was one lady who at one point in the show, he was separating cardboard and actual trash from a recycling conveyor belt. He said that the conveyor belt was going too fast, and the lady told him that it was actually one of the slowest belts that they've had. So
Wow.
when they got to the office to have their sit down, and he told her that that the work was something that they thought that people should be able to handle was actually harder for a person to perform than what the corporate office actually thought it would be. So he told her that he wanted her to help him to come up with a better plan to get that task completed
Mhm.
within a reasonable amount of time and in an actual manner that it can actually be done effectively. And then before she left, she actually told him, thanks. I really don't want a promotion. Thanks for coming to see what we do. And
That's pretty powerful.
I think that a lot of you know mid or entry level employees at law enforcement agencies would prefer to have someone of that management staff that's making those decisions of what has to be done. How do we get to Z from A? The people that make those decisions from Z to A need to know exactly what we are actually contending with at this point. Those entry level or mid level people are dealing with new technology. They're dealing with a new breed of people. They're dealing with a new breed of more violent and just uncaring criminals. So it's different than it was before with them. With the policies and procedures that are in place now, it's law enforcement has, from what I've seen from my readings and research on different topics, law enforcement today is a whole lot more regulated than it was in the past, which is a good thing. But
Sure, sure.
now you can't just jump out of a car and hit somebody in the head with a stick because they didn't listen to what you said. If you do that
Right.
now, you will end up in federal prison somewhere.
Right. Which, in all honesty, you probably should.
Absolutely.
Now don't get me wrong. There's some people that's exactly what they need, but I don't really think that we're the people to give it to them.
No, absolutely not. It's not my job, just like we talked about in the last episode. It is not my job to raise your kids, and it is not my job to also go out and lay waste to everybody that's out here. The majority of our job, I think 95% of our job is about education. Everybody doesn't need to go to jail.
Say that again. Say that again.
You heard it. Everybody does not need to go to jail.
That's right.
On those days when I was entry level, everybody needed to go to jail. Because for whatever reason, everybody needed to go to jail. If you fit the elements of a crime, you needed to go to jail. But with a little bit of time and a little bit of looking around, and a little bit of actual thinking about what is going on, you can actually realize that people make mistakes. People aren't always knowledgeable about what the law is. So, instead of writing that guy that move over law ticket, how about you just pull them over and educate them? Educate them on how many law enforcement, public safety, and road workers are killed every year because people are in such a hurry that they can't move over an extra lane or slow down while they're out there working.
Yep.
Sometimes that ticket or taking somebody to jail just isn't necessarily the best option. Now, if you get somebody doing the same thing over and over and over again, then I can agree. Yeah, let's go ahead and basically
Right.
make them voluntarily comply by slowing them down, by stopping them, by making them take the penalty associated with whatever action they took that was a violation of the law, and hopefully hope that will change their behavior. But
Yeah.
just as well as I do, most people can get pulled over and get a traffic citation. They're going to be mad as hell for a couple of days,
Yep.
and I'll be willing to say the average time that they'll slow down is less than a week and a half.
Yeah, maybe. I think you're being generous.
Yeah, I'm very generous. I think you can get that same time span by just slowing them down and actually talking to them. And I also think talking to people is a lost art in law enforcement too. People are all about numbers and go, 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 and
Yes.
they're in that robot. Hey,
Yes.
I pulled you over for X, Y, and Z. Let me have your driver's license. Go back to their car. Never say anything else to them.
Yeah, except for, signing here is not an admission to guilt. It's acknowledgement of the court date,
Absolutely. People just want to do the robot thing. I think we're all guilty of it. I had my own
Sure.
little robot spiel when I first started. Hi, I'm JSDR, and I'm pulling you over because of Z. Can I have your driver's license? I walk back to the car, I write them a ticket, or I write them a warning. If I wrote them a ticket, it was, I need a signature on the pink line next to X, your court date is so-and-so and so-and-so, sign on the citation is not an admission of guilt, just saying I'm giving you a copy of the citation, told you what your court date is. And I would say it just like that. And I'm sure that 90% of you don't understand what I just said.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't understand what I just said either because it was something that I said over and over and over again.
Right.
So when
It's
somebody would,
something that you were taught in FTO that you did not understand why you said it.
right, and when somebody stopped me in the middle of it and said, "What did you say?" I would have to say it all over again because I couldn't say little small portions or pieces of it at all by itself.
You had to start all over at the beginning.
All over at the beginning.
Yep. Yep. I agree. And dude, that's we're law enforcement is held to such a high standard that we we kind of understand that we're held to a higher standard, but it we get so lost in the little things. Like, why do we tell people that they have to sign a ticket? So in the state of Georgia anyway, the reason that people must sign a ticket is because they're basically saying by signing the ticket that they will appear before the court or they will pay their fine before the court date. But how many people understand that that's what it means? I don't. I think that number is probably very low. I think it's probably under 20%.
I'll be willing to say less than that. With law enforcement, the way that it is now, I don't know about your agency, but with the agency that I work with, and a couple other agencies, a lot of the age, as far as experience, is I'll be willing to say that the average age on a shift, excluding the supervisors on that shift, is 6 months.
Oh no! See, for us, our average. I calculated it up not too long ago, and crap, I can't remember what it is, but our average years of experience, I think, is man, I want to say it's better than 12 years experience, but we're a small agency. We get to pick and choose who we hire, and we typically pick people who have been in law enforcement for a long time because it speeds up the FTO process, quicker to get someone out on the road, and as long as they don't have any major issues in their past, we can just get them through FTO and get them on the road.
Absolutely. And that's one thing about having a smaller agency, I would say, that can be at sometimes better than having a larger agency. Another
Right.
good thing about a smaller agency, as far as you know, the closeness and the brotherhood and the camaraderie that you have at a smaller agency, I think is more than you will have at a bigger agency. Because smaller agency, most of the time, you can still walk into the chief's office or the deputy chief's office and tell them what you feel. You can't go overboard now, but you can go in and say, "Hey, how you doing?"
Right.
and talk to them a little bit. But you know,
Right.
at
I can vouch for that. I can say at my agency that is exactly what can happen. You can walk into even to the chief's office for as long as you're not overstepping your bounds too much. You can most definitely walk into the assistant chief's office or the deputy chief or whatever you want to call him. You can walk into his office and hey, deputy chief, how are you today, and carry on a conversation, stuff like that. But I agree, the agency in which you work for, going in and be able to sit down and talk to you, the number two, is probably not going to happen unless your job is on the line, and even then, you probably still wouldn't stand for that.
well, I think it could happen, but it wouldn't be just be able to walk up and walk in because they're busy up there. Who knows what they do? I have no idea what they do.
Administrating, man, they're
You know, they
administrators.
they know what they do, and I feel like if you wanted to, you could talk to them. But the difference is like if you're pissed off right now about something, you could walk in and go talk to them.
Now, JC, listen, I've known you for a long time, and you've never been like that.
Who, me?
Who, me? No, I
But
think the likelihood I think the
at
likelihood of you being able to walk into your number two's office and voice your frustration or your opinion is probably slim to none, and you have been known to do such in the past.
I think that at larger agencies, let's use the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Office.
Sure.
Okay. Actually, that probably won't be a good idea because I think they have chiefs at every precinct that have a chief.
Let's say let's pick one like
Let's go.
maybe
Let's say
Atlanta.
Atlanta. Let's say Atlanta.
Let's say Atlanta.
I think if you want to go meet with the chief or the deputy chief at Atlanta and you're an employee, you got to schedule a time. You got to call a secretary, schedule
Now,
a time out that you want to go talk to them.
by employee, you mean first line worker.
Anybody.
Patrol officer to anything under command staff.
Right. Command staff has that direct line. If a command staff member has a problem, they can call and they can talk to them right then. In all actuality, I think we all have equal access. But I think if you want to take something to that level, the right way to go about it would be to go through the way that you need to go through it and talk to your chain of command, up the chain of command until you get there. So that's going to also extend the process a little bit longer as well. But, we all have access to the number one's telephone number, the number two's telephone number if we need to call for whatever reason. Who knows if they're going to answer or not, but, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Hopefully they will. And
Yeah.
I don't know.
So to kind of bring this back around, what you're saying is that you would like to see a lot of these people who have been out of the actual physical act of law enforcement actually be brought back in to do some law enforcement work, instead of managing or administrating and stuff like that. You'd like to see maybe like a major or something like that be brought back down and have to go out and answer calls about my kids won't eat their breakfast before they have to go to school.
No, we talked about that already. We don't do that.
No?
We talked about that in the last podcast, remember? I can't raise your kids.
Right.
If your kids want to go to school hungry because they don't want to eat breakfast, they can go to school hungry.
But still, what do you think
in my world,
what do you think the likelihood of the administrators actually going out and answering that call the way that you as a police officer know the way that call should be answered? What do you think the likelihood of those command staff members actually being able to go out and answer that call to a way that if you were a supervisor, you would expect that call to be answered?
You hear that pause and that hesitation? I can't answer that. But what I will say and what I will tell you is that I've had a long-term goal of becoming a police chief or a sheriff at some point. And when I do get to that point, when I get to that point, it will be a requirement that all of my command staff members, including myself, will be required to work.
I got your back. Hold on just a second. We lost you as you were kind of starting on that little tangent. So start that all over again if you could, please.
Start it all over. All right. So a long-term goal of mine is to become a police chief or a sheriff. And when I get to that point, I said when because I'm not going to say if, because if isn't an option for me at this point. When is the only option at this point. When I become that sheriff or that police chief, it will be a requirement for all of my command staff members, including myself, to work a certain amount of time.
There we go.
To work a certain amount of time with the agency or the part of the department that they have control over. So
sure.
If I, let's say, have a department that has a jail, a court, and a patrol, the command staff or myself and the number two will have to work a certain amount of time in each of those three areas. So that would mean that I would be getting dressed and riding around in a regular patrol car not in whatever I typically drive. I'm going to ride around in whatever everybody else is driving, and I'm going to go out and answer some calls. I'm going to go out and I'm going to stop some cars.
So you're going to get in a black and white and not your blacked out Charger and
Absolutely,
or whatever the car flavor of the month is whenever you become a police chief.
absolutely. And I just think that I just think it's needed. I think people lose focus sometimes. I know that police chiefs and sheriffs are busy, and to put that requirement on them from my standpoint would be difficult. But I think that at this point, from what I see, I would always block out that time because there's always time for vacation. There's always off days. So as a salary employee, I can come in on one of my off days and meet that requirement that I have for the rest of my command staff. And I could also come in and say, I'm going to work a 12-hour shift with the guys on nights this week. Or,
Right.
next month I'm going to work a day shift with the guys. And I'm going to get out there and I'm going to answer a call. I'm not going to just sit back and play the backup game or just go to hot calls or just stay in the good areas. I'm going to, be seen.
Sure, sure. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. I I can honestly say that from my perspective, for the chief that I work for, um, I have been with him. I have responded to him as a backup officer where he took the lead because he was the first officer on scene. He truly thinks of himself as a police officer that has to do chief duties as opposed to a chief that has to do officer duties. So there's actually been a lot of good changes that have come from him being out directing traffic even. I mean, I one of the one of the things that sticks out in my mind is me and another officer were actively fighting somebody that was involved in a DUI hit and run, and the chief of police was standing in the uh, in the monsoon that was happening at the time, getting soaked from basically his waist down. And what came from that is we all got new raincoats. And they were the 3/4 length raincoats, the really nice ones, really good. And you know, he doesn't understand how big of a difference that makes for us
Right.
that we get to have that kind of equipment. But in the same token, he didn't really understand what it did for us to know that while we were out doing the cool pulley stuff, fighting people and all that stuff, he was sitting there directing traffic around the scene of an accident. And
We,
that's something that I think a lot of police chiefs don't do.
we don't fight people.
That's true. You're right. We don't fight people. We get them to willingly comply with our lawful orders if that takes a use of force on our part to get them to do it, then that's what's required.
Thank you. Thanks for making that right.
All right, well, hey, let's switch gears here. Uh, let's talk about this Gary, Indiana police officer. The 47-year-old patrolman, his name was Jeffrey Westerfield. He was found dead Sunday morning after a citizen called police and reported an officer bleeding in his car. This police officer in Gary, Indiana, was shot to death feloniously by someone who was who we really don't know the guy's motive for doing it, but what we do know is that it was Patrolman Westerfield's 47th birthday. He was killed on his birthday,
Mm.
and he was a he was an 18-year veteran of the police force working a midnight shift. And I man, it's so sad that this guy, he probably was, just minding his own business, doing a report or something like that, and someone came up to him and killed and murdered him in his car. And that's really sad, but it really is a testament and kind of a reminder for us to be able to be vigilant whenever we're parked and we think that we're by ourselves and there's no one around. You know, whenever we're working on a report or we're pulling registration files or whatever we're doing, it's very important for us to stay on our toes and always be aware of what surrounds us. And if you're gonna take that, that 2 o'clock power nap, always have someone watching your six, man, because something like this could happen and be taken from this world way too way too early. And man, just what a waste of skin for this murderer to be out here. It's very sad, very sad.
I don't know. I'm actually reading a little bit of the story now. I read a little bit about it earlier. Um, it, I'm just pull up another story, and it says that 3 people are in custody for a fatal shooting of a Gary, Indiana police officer. I
Yeah.
don't know if I know there were 3 line of duty deaths this week in Indiana, and I don't know if um, this one is specifically the three where the 3 people are in custody for. But
It's been a
I am
bad,
reading it, and it says
bad
that
day in Indiana, man.
absolutely. Um, they have no idea. They're not really giving out too much information right now.
They're really not. And I understand why they're not. They don't want to kind of show their cards too early for any of this kind of stuff. But it's so important. When you think you're by yourself, you're not. You're always being watched. There's always somebody else out there, and make sure you're never alone. That goes very, very far in our line of work.
Mm. He had he's 19 years of service and 4 daughters.
Man,
4 daughters
4 daughters.
that will never see their daddy again.
Man, and you got these people out there just dog cussing law enforcement for just doing a job, and these four poor little girls will never get to kiss their daddy goodnight another day in their life. Kind of puts things in perspective.
Mm.
All right,
He's
more happy things, happier, happier, happier. So we started this podcast kind of on a note of badliness, and I want to end on the kind of the same thing. There's a website out there that has really caught my attention over the past few months, weeks. It's called The Art of Manliness, and you can find them at artofmanliness.com. And their latest post that they have on here is called Semper Virilis, a roadmap to manhood in the 21st century. And the whole premise of this podcast is, the whole premise of the website, it also has a podcast, but the whole premise of it is to bring back the art of being a man. And they do it in some rather funny ways sometimes. But like for instance, this latest post for a roadmap to the manhood in the 21st century, it talks about things like manliness is a choice, and virtue, which is the capstone of manhood, which they claim. And they go about the task of telling men how to be men in such a funny way. And it's very it really resonates kind of at a deep core level about the things that they talk about. Like there's one, how to cook a steak on a grill, and just kind of these lost arts of being a man that really especially with me, they really resonate. And I think kind of in the world that we live in now, the art of being a man is kind of going by the wayside. But it's really nice to see some people kind of putting some stake in the ground and saying, hey, look, we want to teach you guys how to be men again. So if you get a chance, check that out. And with that, I think we're gonna wrap up this episode of the Officer Dad podcast. I have been Brian Kane, the man behind a whole bunch of other stuff, but also Officer Dad. And with me today has been JC, our mysterious guest, who will join us many, many more times. You have any closing thoughts for the guest, JC?
I just come to this Man of Art of Manliness website, and there is a lot of stuff on here. And I think I'm gonna get me a couple of these T-shirts too.
Yeah. Check out the shop on there. We don't get an affiliate link for that, but check it out. It's good stuff. Anyway, thank you guys so much for joining us for this episode of the Officer Dad podcast. We will see you guys next time. Thank you so much.
See you guys.